Wendy's. Like,
we don't have Wendy's. It's a hamburger.
Yeah, I know.
Wendy's.
I know what a hamburger is, my dude. Like, so is it from a place or a chain or
no chain? Local restaurant thing.
And you're eating it with a fork and a knife because that's normal, or
I think it's more normal to eat like with hand, but it's messy. I don't like
utensils are subsidized by the government, so they have to use them.
I just don't need the mess in my life, so.
God, I couldn't eat a burger with chopsticks. I wouldn't even. Sorry. Anyway, so welcome to the Dresden Files podcast. We're going to pretend to be professional today, so we're off to a good start.
No, we did that last week. We don't have to do that again.
Yeah, but the director said there's like 200 new people watching us, so she wanted to put on a good impression.
And this is not our usual time, which is why in the middle of
dinner so time. Nobody is going to watch us, so it's fine. We're early.
Yep. So we're talking about the reaction to last week's interview, and we're going to spoil shit and swear and fuck.
So this episode is number 122, but we're discussing the episode 77 because we earmarked it years ago and we just kept it there.
Yeah.
This isn't confusing.
We did anticipate having him on a little bit earlier, and it kind of turned into an in-joke for us from episode 17 that we were just going to keep the number scheme, and then if he rescheduled, it just be like, well, we already slotted that episode for you. So he gets his own... his own episodes, 17 and 77, very easy to find. So
easy for me, at least, and that's what matters.
Right.
Yes, we do have our own lore here at the Dresden Files.
You, the viewer, are irrelevant as long as the director can find the episode.
Trust me, it helps a lot that she can find the episodes. Like, bad things happen if the director doesn't know.
Yes, and those things have happened. So I'm sticking with my progress that works, even if it doesn't necessarily make sense. We did get some information. We had a pretty good run of questions.
2 or 3 things, so.
And now our professionalism runs out. How are we going to dole out this information? Talk about the most exciting stuff first? Or
you were the one jumping up and down the most, so you might as well go with your favorite first.
The Soulfire?
Yeah.
That was cool.
That you were excited about that?
Yes, I was.
Loads of people, online were like, "Oh my god, that explains so much," and now we know. And like, what a great, tidbit. And like he said, right, it's one of those we weren't going to find out in the books probably, so you might as well tell us.
How can you not plan on revealing that in the books? Because that's awesome.
Where's it going to come up?
Dresden could ask the question, just like we did.
Dresden could ask the question.
Yeah, Dresden could do a lot of
things. Hey guys, what's a Starborn?
It only took
18 books for that one.
Yeah. Well, technically, it only took him like 6, right? So
But
doesn't Last Shield bring it up the first time? So maybe like 10, but
yeah. Mm-hmm. Like, we have all the same information that Dresden does, and so when we have the question of like this isn't following the same rules, he could ask the question.
One important caveat: not all 4 of us are idiots. So for Dresden, it's 1/1. He's dumb. He's dumb. He's lucky. I mean, don't get me wrong. I love him and he's intelligent, whatever. But he's as dumb as Jim needs him to be in the moment, right?
Yes.
So Whereas we're crowdsourcing this shit. We've got the whole Paranet behind us. We're like, please feed us questions because we got the ones we want to know, but we're gonna get other ones. So
yeah, and
when Jim was like,
we don't necessarily need it from Dresden's point of view. With the fact that we have short stories and other people's point of view, someone more in the know could have asked a question or just revealed it or something. But if Odin having Soulfire is the reason why he is so intimidating to the rest of the gods, that seems important. The dude plans ahead in all of the mythology. The purpose of his being prepared, that's a huge point.
Well, he also gets the flexibility of choice. The rest of them have to act within their natures more. He's mortalish. He's got enough that he can do Soulfire, so he can, he gets to play around essentially like a mortal, but with super duper power.
Right. Yeah. yes and no. I mean, going back to the like, when was this ever going to come up in the book? Like, the only time I could think is like he's going to have another sit down chat with Dresden and be like, "So Soulfire, huh? Yeah, me too," and then like move on. Or unless you take the new diehard fans thing. Super spoilers. So if you haven't read Battlegrounds, turn this the hell off. But
where are you listening?
Yeah, right. But with the Murphy thing, right? They're like, people have taken stuff from, I don't remember if it was our interview or if it was the Legendarium one or one of the other recent ones, but like Jim didn't give them a hard no, like slam the door in their face that Murphy's not coming back in the book series. So like, unless, Murphy's like, "Ooh, look, I'm 6 feet tall now and cool." And, like, "Hey, Soulfire," like, again, when's it ever going to come up? But,
I mean, I always anticipated she'd probably come back for the big three at the end, unfortunately.
No, for sure. I mean, you got to have all your allies come together.
Mm-hmm.
So we'll have Zombie Karen and Zombie Butters and Zombie Will.
He's also the implication from the answer we got was also, he's had this for a really long time, Soulfire, right? Because that's how there's Einherjar
that are thousands of years running too. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Since that goes back, to,
and that goes way back
all the way. Yeah. It's not like, hey, he's had this since like Hastings. Nah. Yeah.
He's been at it a while.
Right. Maybe it used to be necromancy.
I love Jim's reaction though, like when like how and Alex, that when he was like, fuck it, it's never gonna come up, and I was like, oh, we're getting something good.
I know.
Right.
That, and I feel proud of the fact that we reminded him that Vadrung has a favor from Harry, and he's going to pull it out at the worst possible time.
No, man.
Makes me so happy.
Rule number 1, you don't give the DM ideas, and we did worse than that. No, I mean, it's greatness, but also I'm so sorry, Harry. So
I'm not. Get over it.
Yeah.
I mean,
it's
get
not
good.
like
Be better.
It's not like the library from the first interview where it's like, hey, so, Lord Rick's got all these books. What's all about that? He's like, what are you talking about? I'm like, oh,
like,
shit. They made such a big deal about this in Blood Rights. I mean, it's kind of like a throwaway line, but at the same time, like, we know
it's that throwaway line that has like, hey, this is important little flag on it.
Right.
While talking about like he's immune to magic and something or other, kiss of death, and like he's got this library nodes around in there.
Right.
Well, most of that wasn't a throwaway. One of those things were.
Right. This time it's like, hey, what about that favor? Oh yeah, that's really good. Oh hey, what happened to Chandler? for those audio only, I'm shrugging because nobody knows. He went to the dark place. What does that mean? Hopefully I figure that out later.
One day I'll decide.
That has been bothering me ever since. How can you not know where Chandler went when you put it in the fucking book?
No, see, it's funny because like on the one hand, like if it's honest, then it's a great piece of honesty. But on the other hand, it's like maybe he's getting smarter. Maybe he's getting away from the I'm not going to tell you.
I mean, it's also a good. It's not just like if you have confidence in yourself as a writer, and I'm sure by the time you've written 18 Dresden Files books and Codex Alera, and he's pretty. He can write. So you're leaving yourself openings for an interesting story, like Chandler disappeared in there. That might be a valid strategy. It's like, I don't know yet, but I know I can think of something good.
Right.
I'll know it when I find it.
Well, and I mean, worst case scenario, it's a cop out, right? He went to a dark place and was never seen again, or they go run around somewhere in the Never Never, and they're like, oh man, this place is really dark. Keep your eye out for. Oh God, I stepped in Chandler. He don't have to
found a bowler on the floor.
Right. Property of Steed. What? No. Yeah.
I really also that where we got that whole like one of those. Oh, this is probably some really important thing we should figure out. Is we ask, will Bob stay with Harry? I'm not going to tell you what the future of the books. Then we go into, but then who are Bob's parents? And then he's like, you can figure it out. Like, I stopped guessing what you guys can figure out because, like, people like you ruin it for everybody.
Yes, I did like that accusation.
And then he drops that little next one with when we ask what did Bob learn how to kill an immortal, and he's known for a long time. Was born knowing a lot of things with his parentage.
Right.
Mhm.
Yeah. So to me, it all but confirms Mab is part of it, right?
It seems like a solid enough.
Right.
Yeah.
But that still leaves it so wide open for who Dad was, like because the only other instance we have is Mab and Merlin, right? So you have two solid pieces of information. She obviously had a thing for Merlin, if not, access, however you want to describe it. The other thing is she's buried a cohort of lovers. So like those are the only two hard pieces of information we've got from the books to figure that out. And it's not like
How old is
she's got
Bob?
some consort hanging off. Well,
You don't know
since
how old he is.
Well,
Eddie
I
and
mean,
the Enchanter, right?
Several centuries, probably about 1,000 years old, give or take.
So unless Eddie and the Enchanter had something going on with Mab, because that's the other from the other side. So
Well, Eddie Yen's the one who supposedly found him, didn't? And
Right.
so
yeah, I found Bonea in my head. So
or at least made the skull. I don't think it has anything to do
Right.
with his creation.
But in what parentage pairing does that make sense for Bob to be wandering around for Etienne to grab him and put him in a skull?
I mean, by
Well, he's
then
got to
maybe he
have a
was-
home.
And by then, maybe he was banished by Mab or on the run,
If
Right.
Mab is mommy, why is Bob so scared? I mean, because the winter seems to still protect offspring.
Did you not remember how Sarissa felt about her mother?
Sarissa cares about her
she's-
mother. Are you
Right,
talking about
but she's
Maeve?
afraid of her too. No, she was afraid of her too. She's a scary, scary woman. You have to have a healthy fear of that. Individual.
Everybody's scared of Map except maybe the Titan.
Maybe Mother Winter isn't.
Oh no, Mother Winter's
Dresden
annoyed by her.
sometimes.
That's about it. No,
Petulant child.
Dresden's actually like he's properly afraid, but not properly. He doesn't properly react to it.
sure.
Probably afraid, but not giving that fear the respect that probably is warranted. But that's
Well, let's
because
face
he's
it.
Dresden.
If Bob is, let's say he pops out, he's ignorant. He doesn't know what he knows or why he knows it. And right there, the person that essentially birthed him or is his mommy is like, we have to get rid of this. This is not information we need to have out there. I could see her easily thinking, no, forget child. This is a security risk.
But hold on. Bob's history is it. I like the idea of Mab being mom, but she should still be keeping track of him. And he was running around with Kemmler, who even she was afraid of.
Mhm.
How did that happen?
How did he get demon reach? Shit happens. He was a special case, remember? He's what
That's
everyone
true.
thinks Harry is for some reason, because they're stupid.
Well, because I mean, because I think we had assumed up until the interview that Rashid was the last time anybody saw something like that going on. But when the last time was Kemmler, it starts to make a whole lot more sense, right? To flip it to a different fantasy IP or whatever. If the last time that the chosen one was Voldemort, and then you're like, oh, look at this, child prodigy asking about Horcruxes. You're like, yeah, let's make sure that kid disappears. Like, that's what Dresden's going through right now. And honestly, there's still as much fun as it is to hate on the council because we know better. Like, there's still loads of evidence for their point of view, right? Like, we see Morgan just up and decide shit, and he should have known better. We see the Merlin up and decide shit, and we have to assume he knows better, but it's hard to say for certain. But like, the general wizard population, they were like, I don't know shit about that, and I can't wait for him to shoot first. I'm not an evoker, so I'm going to get out in front of this one before we have another Kemmler. Yeah, that makes total sense to me. But
I mean, throwing him out is not exactly the same thing as, oh, now we stop the next Kemmler.
yeah, I mean,
Really? You think?
they're pretty dumb in that regard. But I think that's a plot necessity more than it is, makes sense. And I think they probably are arrogant enough that they thought Ramirez's ultimatum was going to work, right? You know, the whole you are not allowed to be a wizard anymore, and he's
There
like,
is nobody.
"Get
There
fucked."
is nobody on the senior council who has met Dresden who thought that was actually gonna stick.
Yeah.
Well,
I
let's
mean,
face it. The only one who decided was basically Merlin and or maybe Ancient Mai, because
He
three people were
definitely
out of
knows.
commission, and at least maybe even four, because we don't know what Martha Liberty was or was not doing. But we know Christos and Listens to Wind and Ebb were all hurt.
And Rashid was at the gates.
He was at the gates, so it comes down to three people, only one of whom is maybe in Harry's corner if she was even there.
right.
And so,
I'm just saying he would know. I also
Yeah.
think that, you know, despite everything that happened, Ebenezer 100% still has Harry's back.
well, yeah.
Like he would leave the White Council if he felt like he
Probably
had
wouldn't leave, but he would probably support as much as he could from inside.
He-
Probably similar to the way that he tried
Well,
with
he would do what
Margaret.
Ramirez did back when Ramirez was a decent person and was like not really hunting down Molly.
Mhm.
I mean, I think he would take the same kind of stand if he felt it was necessary, like he did on the island, where he just basically says, if you're fighting Harry, you're also fighting me, and just against the Wardens and Ancient Mai.
Yeah.
Well, it's a
I mean,
little
it
easier to do
depends.
when you're there with your buddy and Ancient Mai's not really a combat wizard.
Right. And it also depends on like who against what now, right? Because now we know, you know, Ebenezer will kill Harry if the White Court's involved. So, you know, because that
I mean,
happened.
to be fair,
accidentally.
Sure, you know, the level 20 Master Wizard, he done accidentally got his elbow jostled.
I think that was part.
But
That was
you know,
that was part of the problem. Was he was very much like super not in control.
right.
Nothing
He's very
rattles
in
you like
control compared to his idiot grandson, but
nothing rattles you like family, right? I mean, that's really what that's what
people
Murphy
keep
says. Yeah. Ah, Ebenezer.
Mm. All right. So we got a load of characters we're never going to see again.
But some of them we'll see in 12 months, which will be
So
good.
no Thomas, no Cat Sith, no Eldest Gruff. Just kidding. So
Oh,
I really like that little tidbit we got with the mantle of like the eldest of each race is like that they're like the prime that gets transferred to the next oldest one.
right. I don't know. Until we see it happen, like, you know, I'm still like, okay, great. It's a mantle, it's a title, but I'm not like, I don't think when Grimalkin gets bumped off that, you know, Gray Malkin is going to be like, oh yeah, I'm all pumped up now because of the essence of, you know, the prime or whatever, but
might be.
we'll see.
I mean, at a minimum, if he starts becoming, you know, Mab's like, you know, second in command as far as malts go, then that alone is going to be the responsibility to warrant something.
Sure. But okay, so you're saying like flip it to the other side, right? So Eldest Gruff gets bumped off finally somehow, right? Like, don't get me wrong, I'm not saying it's likely. Tiny gets to be the new Eldest Gruff. Does he inherit all the wizardry, or, you know, like
it's probably like a banner that we've seen now, but like they have some form of connection to the rest of them. They are held responsible to a certain extent of the others' actions and can help coordinate.
Yeah.
right? I guess let me rephrase. I don't think it's the greatest source of their power, right? It's not like the Winter Knight or the Summer Knight where it's like you're pretty much a mortal dude until you get this, and Dresden's a special case because he was already a wizard. Like that's probably what it is in Eldest Gruff's case, right? He probably was already a wizard and now he's also the eldest. So I think sure they get like a noticeable power bump, but it's not like, you know,
Yeah.
they
yeah.
turn into the Hulk or something, you know. So
Yeah, I could believe it's somewhere in between.
Do you guys have any ideas what he'll do with Maggie?
Yeah.
Share.
She's going to go to school.
right.
We already know this. She's going to get her own young adult book series. She's going to go to not Hogwarts, and
But she's not going to become Wizard Maggie because that would be too easy. We kind of already tread that ground with Molly. So it's got to be something that's more difficult. And Mortal would also be pretty simple, like vanilla Mortal, but it's got to be something different.
Are you saying she's a quarter vampire because, you know?
No.
Yeah, she's the Daywalker. That'd be great.
Right.
We'll see.
I don't know. Yeah, it just. I mean, there could be some of that. I honestly don't mind at all thinking of her growing up to be, a late teens, early 20s, fedora wearing, El Dorado wearing, like with the duster and the mantle and everything. I think that's a great look. I think that'd be hilarious and fantastic. But I understand where people might think it would be a retread. But for now, for the next decade, we just have to worry about her getting through school and hunting down the monsters in Xavier's basement. So
if she gets powers, she will be coming into them in a few years, and we'll know. I guess like depending on how much shorter the time frame is for these books, and in a couple of
or
books,
she'll be a late bloomer, and it won't happen until she's like 16 or something, like Molly. Oh wait, no, Molly was a little younger.
Molly timeline is a little fucked up because he
well, it was like a couple of years before, or a year before proving guilty, and she's 17 there, so somewhere between, we'll say 14 and 16 was when she was going invisible accidentally.
Well, and even Dresden was in middle school, wasn't he? So when he did his big jump.
Yeah.
So
it was like 12 was it middle or something. School?
I thought
so. I thought he was like 10.
He was 11. He was still tiny, so he hadn't hit the big growth spurts.
Whatever.
Yeah. So I'm confused about these power levels things as we've gotten various words of Jim and evidences and stuff. Mother Winter would be concerned about a direct hit from the Eye of Baelor, but Mab can withstand it.
I was thinking about that last night because the wife is finally making it through the book. She's in the like second to last chapter, and we were talking about Titania reflecting it, Mab tanking it, and then if Uriel sits there like a punk, he'll get taken out. And I'm like, okay, so does that mean he can't tank it, or if he literally didn't do anything whatsoever?
It's probably if he didn't do anything, just like if Mab didn't do anything, she would probably die.
I was gonna say, Mab probably had, she had her, literally force field, with her will, and just says, how about no, you crazy Dutch bastard, and then, tanks it. So
I think we also have to take into possible consideration that FU was, she was a Titan, but she was like small T in comparison apparently to her dad.
Right.
So, if Baelor is someone like, okay, this was essentially made for him and is of his power, and so we probably weren't even necessarily seeing the full range that the Eye could necessarily muster. So if we're talking like, Mother Winter stands there with Baelor firing at her, maybe we're talking a different matter.
Right. Which I guess kind of brings up, like one of the only cross comments I saw from the subreddit was like, we should have done more follow up on the Eye. Like, can Harry even power it and stuff like that? So, there's still some questions to be answered out there.
I'm actually kind of okay if he can't, because I don't really want him to put it in.
Well, like it's like several orders of magnitude more than the crucifixion artifacts, in my opinion. Like, he's got those, right? And we've wondered since Skin Game, like, what's he going to do? What are they used for? Whatever. We know at least two of them now, at least some of their abilities and what they do. But now with the Eye of Baelor, like, where's he going to get elemental chaos? Or I think, between the staves or the spears from the huntsman and the Eye, you just hate enough. And like, when's he gonna do that? Like, okay, cool. All you ghouls line up over here. I got to get some hate juices flowing. Like,
just put Rudolph up in front of him.
Oh, that's there. There you go.
Yeah.
So, okay, I'm sorry. I have to get this out of my head. So now he's got like a hog-tied Rudolph, and he shoves the Eye in his mouth and just bakoosh, and just starts shooting it off at people.
Sounds about right.
Right. There we go. That's how he's going to bring down the big bad at the end. He's got a rail-mounted Rudolph to fire the Eye of Baelor.
Part of the reason I had asked that in relation to Mother Winter is because I was picturing, like, give her staff back and then give her the Eye and just like, go. Go kill some things.
Indulge yourself.
Right.
Yeah.
But it's like, well, I mean, I already knew that was just fantasy because she's already someone, which we got further confirmation on, that is not just popping into reality, because she's the next best thing to a Uriel type, where she's basically the same across all timelines and too strong for that kind of shit.
Right.
I find it interesting that we're building up this armory, presumably for the big apocalyptic trilogy. And I think there might even be a little more added to it over the next few books.
Yeah. Well, and it was crazy to say the words, but you know, the crucifixion stuff being like, imagine those being the least of the artifacts, right? You're just like, oh shit. So what's bigger than the Eye of Baelor that he's going to?
He also has the swords, right? That's kind of how his magical armory started. If
Well,
I
he's
remember
got
way
He's
back.
one of them now.
Yeah, he's got a
Yeah.
sword.
So now
Like, he's got the one everyone cares about, but he's got
Yeah.
one.
Mhm.
And he's got a whole island. He's got a Titan now that he could use if he wants to, plus whatever else is down there.
Yeah, because he can bind all of them to his will and use them as foot soldiers.
That's
Yay.
true. Yeah, that's established.
How many can he control at a time, though?
Depends on
One
how
if he's
hard he
lucky.
can think.
One if
One
he's
if
lucky,
he's
probably.
13.
I mean, by the time of the big apocalyptic trilogy, maybe his brain power is more than that. So maybe he can handle multiple.
Yeah, it's not like he keeps getting hit in the head or anything.
Very interesting. I think we definitely need to talk about the Fae has a sponsor.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So do you think that was Hades in specific, the Greek pantheon in general, or
Well, it's
Well,
definitely.
I think it was Hecate / the Greeks,
Right.
funneling down.
It's definitely Greek something, but
Yeah.
if it was specifically Hades, or I think it was the pantheon as a whole, if I were to guess. It can't just be Hades.
Yeah, she was
Well, no,
almost
it was-
certainly directly involved, and Hades
Yeah.
seems to have, a very good relationship. Zeus doesn't seem like a joiner to me, right? So, like, unless there's something you can say profit-wise, like, if you take the mythology as roughly literal, Zeus is fucking around, literally on the job. Hera's pissed off at him, right, all the time. Does Aphrodite really seem like the person who's going to give a shit about that? Maybe Athena, maybe Hades or Ares, right? Because you could see the goddess of wisdom and the god of war. That's kind of their jam. So if there's an eternal battlefield, why would they not be involved in some level? Maybe not sponsoring the Fae, but they certainly going to be there to play around. Stuff like that. So maybe Apollo. But like, it's just
I mean, with the statues plus, Mother Winter going by the names of the fates,
Mhm.
it seems like it's Greek in general. It's probably Hecate specifically, because once you get that throwaway line in Skin Game about how it was her idea that they could get their honeymoon, it's like, okay, so she's clearly involved in a player on some level in something, wise enough to be able to do this. And she's a triple goddess, so you split each one in half and you get 2 queens of each. It's got
Right.
the symmetry.
right, and they're literally mirrors of each other. So
Mhm.
yeah, it fits the best. I mean,
There's
it's not
probably more
confirmation,
to
but-
it.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, because she's also goes by a Norn. I'm willing to bet, and that's why
Mhm.
that's part of why I asked about whether or not the Gates was a coalition or not, because I feel like if she were sort of an amalgamation of a bunch of things, because if they were the foot soldiers all this time, the fairies, it makes sense that they would have gotten a little bit from everywhere.
she's likely the same fate in each of the pantheons, because Atropos and Skuld are
Right,
the
they're
same
the-
version
they're
of each
yeah.
other.
Right.
Yeah, because the pantheons are shared between them. Yeah.
Right. And the whole, like, they've been the foot soldiers the whole time. I mean, if you think about it, like ogres and trolls and shit like that, I mean, that's another thing that crosses multiple, mythologies. So, it's not at all a stretch to be like, yeah, okay, the Fae, we're thinking Mab and we're thinking the High She, but those guys were probably created for the purpose. Whereas, like, trolls, I mean, sure, yeah, trolls and ogres and them were also created for the purpose, but they weren't always Fae, like, if that makes sense.
Well, like Kringle,
They're-
he has a
Right.
history that is before the Celtic pantheon. and then he became part of it. Like those trolls and like probably satyrs and whatnot are probably considered Fae now, when before they were just the foot soldiers that became Fae.
Right.
Yep, centaurs.
Mm-hmm.
I mean,
Yeah.
we see them in Summer Night with the Summer Court. Obviously, they were big in Greek mythology.
Yeah.
Unicorns, probably.
Minotaurs.
Everything.
Right.
So yeah, all the monsters and all the creatures of those various goblins, we know now what they are. So
it is actually a lot of the Greek things that are specifically in Fae.
Wow.
When you think about it.
Sure.
Going down this, I mean, we had a couple of questions about like who else in the Dresden verse, like from our history, it was somebody important, right? Like, who was the last knight, or the knight that Mother Winter got to pick, right? So we got Vlad, which is not a shock to anybody, I don't think. And then following it up, we had other notable magic users like Aleister Crowley, who turns out what was the butthead from Harry Potter, the Gilderoy Lockhart, right? He was the pretender, but we also this is where we got the tidbit about like Mab respects monarchs because being the ruler of a country, you just don't fuck with that.
Very specifically, old family monarchs like the Queen of England.
Yeah. Which I think is great. I mean, first of all, the Queen of England is probably Mab in disguise anyway, but no.
It's probably Mother Winter in disguise.
There you go. She lives forever anyway. Now I want that headcanon. Like, for whatever reason they go to the palace and Mab is there and be like, "Hello, Mother," and you're like, "Motherfucker!" Like, what the hell is that?
Magic. Yeah.
Yeah, I like the historical drops of John Dee, who was an advisor to Queen Elizabeth. He was totally on the White Council.
Mm-hmm.
That was fun. I didn't know about that guy, so that was fun.
Nice.
And then the other thing, when we were asking about Leah and like, when do we get to know the details of the deal? It's like, yes, you're right. That's important. We'll get that before the end.
Right.
That's the first time I contributed. It was great. Because that is one of the things that has been bothering me for years. I want to know what it is that it was paid to Leah for her to be giving so much effort over such a long period of time.
Malcolm.
Nah.
Well, I mean, obviously the connection over a long time is easy. She gets the influence of a Starborn and Maggie Dresden's kid, the Blackstaff's grandkid, there's reason enough to be invested in that. But as far as whatever's going to make Harry pissed off about it, it's either she took her life specifically there in childbirth, or she got Malcolm's life later on. There's really nothing else to care about.
Well, considering Margaret was murdered by Lord Rafe.
Right, I'm saying. So either it's like, okay, so Leah could have maybe intercepted the thing and stopped it, and so she's just like, no, you're going to die. Or more likely, she's like, okay, I'm going to comfort him in X, his father in X number of years.
But he died from vanilla means too, right? Is the word of Jim on that?
Supposedly.
He died of an aneurysm.
Right.
I mean,
but okay, so
I don't
Nicodemus...
think
Sorry,
she can't trade away Harry's dad's life. She can only trade away.
People can give away their kids.
She can't give away because she has part ownership, because she has no ownership of his life.
You don't know that.
No, that would make no sense.
Well, or then
you can't trade away. We've never seen that.
Then he was well aware of it, and
you can use people as a sacrifice.
He came to him and said, "So maybe the deal's not just with Maggie."
But there is free will. I don't buy that one. No, not the dad. Unless he said yes to it himself.
Okay.
Or we're not thinking deep enough. Director, you go ahead and then.
Well, so I think the first indication that we had that Malcolm's death may not have been completely as it appeared was, I think Nicodemus said it in Death Masks. So what would it have been for Nicodemus to have the idea that it wasn't just an aneurysm?
Well, an aneurysm you can make an aneurysm.
Exactly,
Magic.
but what would have given? How would the information have gotten to Nicodemus's level?
I think it was
of
Chauncey, wasn't it? Because he said murder.
And Duriel is
Or
kind of like
the
Oh, yeah.
unnatural. He calls it the unnatural death. I think Chauncey does. In
Yeah,
form
that might be
of
right.
Mother
And
and
then-
father.
And then Nicodemus dropped the youngest part because he knew about Thomas.
Which
Okay.
like hints that Jim has planned somehow that the Infernal Neuro was involved somehow, and is like kind of trying to hint that
The what?
the Infernal faction,
Yeah.
that they are involved somehow as well.
I mean,
that's kind of the implication, right?
him. They were. She was one of the circles she ran in. At least as far as company she kept was Nicodemus.
You don't think that it's kind of implied by Jim, and it might just be a red herring, but you don't think there's like an implication in the fact that it's Chauncey and Nicodemus are the two people who said something there?
It's the theme of
I don't know
book,
that
though.
means they're involved with his death so much as it is that they were invested in her and potentially her son. It's not impossible. Like, you can't rule it out, but I mean, if the whole point is Harry and Leah are fighting, it seems like the most likely thing is going to have to do something with Malcolm.
or it has to do with Maggie Jr. So
She has even less of a say over her than she does over
I'm
Malcolm.
just saying, of all the shit to drive Harry nuts, like to drive him into that.
maybe your future kid that we don't know you're ever going to have.
Your child's child.
Yeah.
Yeah, hedging a bet on that, it seems risky.
I
And
mean, it's not like he hasn't burned down an entire nation over it. So
right, so that
How
is the
many
thing
years
that
later?
he would
She
actually
didn't know
fight
him.
for.
He was barely even born.
And that
That's
is something
like
that he would continue
Odin
to fight
levels of
about.
foresight.
I think with Jim saying that maybe they're not going to fight, is like if it was his own pain and he has actually worked through it, and it's no longer something that he's going to be violent about, that makes his statement make sense. But if it was something about threatening Maggie or taking away her choice or anything like that, he would still fight.
It would have to then be something like this agreement is bound to the bloodline.
right.
And so now, by dint of that, she gets to have influence over Maggie. It wouldn't be something with Maggie directly so much as it would be the general, I'm in your family forever. Which, okay, yeah, I guess I could see that general idea.
Right.
So if a Denarian bearer is infected, is it just the host or is it the coin? And he said, that's a good question. He refused to answer.
Yeah. I'm still going to hedge that
What
it's
a
only the host
surprise.
for now. But
Yeah, angels are too big to me to. Although, because that was somebody asked him a long time ago about Lucifer. That was maybe Lucifer got infected, and he's like, no, angels are too big for that.
Gotcha. Yeah. Well, and the other thing was there was a little bit of argument I saw either in the Discord or in the subreddit about, how come Uriel can't see? And so like the fact that the angels don't just know, that Nemesis is about, kind of still gives some credence to the fact that maybe they could get infected. But it seems like one of those things, like maybe because of their nature, they would know, like if Uriel got infected, it's not like that's going to slip past the rest of the angelic host, right? They're like, hey, Uriel, you kind of seem off today. Like it's not like, what we've seen with some of the other ones that it's like, okay, well, if I play this back, then yeah, it totally makes sense that they were subtly different, or this is where it happened. Like if you do it with Cat Sith, especially because most of that happened on screen or adjacent to the screen, right? You can kind of see where that would have lined up and where Harry twigs to it. But with like an angel, like because they're so reserved and they're so, locked down per se, it seems like in that specific case, maybe with the Denarians a little harder, right? Because they're more free, with some of their power anyway. But
Well, the other thing is, so let's assume Uriel does know when he's looking at Justine. Is he really going to be able to tell Harry? He's bound by so many friggin' the rules.
Could be, yeah. I don't know. It depends on the nature of the angels and outsiders in relation to each other, right? We don't necessarily have a hard indication there because to me, certainly the angels are there to like protect free will and that sort of thing. But like if in the beginning God created the heavens and the earth, and mostly He did that by casting out outsiders, somebody had to do it. Like, do you think he purpose built trolls and ogres from day one to just drive them out, or the angels did it? So to me, that would imply they've got the tools for the job, so to speak, right? So, I mean, maybe he did it by himself, and that's why the gates are the gates, and whatnot. But yeah, it just to me like the outsiders are antithetical to the angels. Like, we would think from a typical modern Christian perspective, like, hell and heaven are obviously, they're the opposites. But in the Dresden Files, you also get a little bit more of a curveball with the outsiders because they're antithetical to creation, to everything. So it doesn't make sense to me that the angels would be completely powerless to it. And it may, because of the antithetical nature that they are, like, it's I don't know a good word, but it would be as sickening to them as the rest of creation, right? As the rest of reality. Like humans and whatever, they are sensitive to the psychic attack. Like when the corner hounds come and everybody starts having nightmares and shit, like Uriel would be repulsed by it. He would just be like, ugh, get out of here. Like certainly he's not making friends with any skin-eating demons or something like that, but it's like an order of magnitude higher. So I don't know. I mean, that's my headcanon. Obviously, that's supposition, but
I think the smarter way to go would be maybe the angels can't necessarily tell when it's in a human because a human can already act against its nature. It has free will. Mm-hmm. But like Uriel would be able to tell instantly if it was in like Mab.
Maybe.
That seems like the kind of thing that would be more in line with, nobody likes, nobody trusts, nobody can handle humans because we fuck everything up.
Mm-hmm. Well, because we don't know the nature of like how Nemesis interacts with free will and how important that is here. Like we've never seen anybody taken, right? So it could go a step further. Maybe in order to be infected, you need to allow it. You agree to it for some reason.
Oh yeah, I have to imagine. Well, Maeve, for instance, I don't know that you have to though, because Cat Sith was like brute forced.
Yeah, and Leah at that point, like
Leah, but she accepted it, right? So in Leah's case, she was cursed. Maybe like you took a cursed magic item type of cursed, right? Like, but she accepted it.
She accepted the gift, and she probably is like accepting. Wait, no, she said she thought she could fight it. So maybe she had an indication, and she thought she was more powerful than Nemesis.
Right, and so Cat Sith is a good argument, but I don't think it's settled per se, but because more what I'm thinking is like in Justine's case, like if she's taken when I think she is, for example, where she was, basically broken and probably just going to wane until she died. And then Nemesis is like, how would you like to walk again? Like who's not going to take that deal type of stuff. And with, the ladies and that sort of thing, like, it goes to Maeve and say, what if I give you the power to overthrow your mom? And it goes to Aurora and say, what if I give you the power to stop hurting everybody forever? And, like you could see that there are these temptations, right? At least for each of them. With Cat Sith, less certain, sure. But, I don't know. That's why I'm thinking maybe that's where it would make sense that the angels wouldn't be able to see it per se, is that, if it runs amok with free will, like you said, I can see that.
The only reason I don't agree with that is because these are not things that these people should be able to do with the roles and the natures and the choices they have. They shouldn't be able to be like, yes, come in and then I will be able to act against my nature. I feel like that goes
back to that question about free will, who has it and how much, right?
Right. So I think Nemesis does best. I think it's more dangerous if it can get into you no matter the circumstance. You don't have to accept it or not. I think it works best, and it's obviously the best infiltrator when it works in line with what you already kind of want but can't necessarily do. So Maeve wants to be free of Mab and make her own choices. Leah wants to be able to Aurora wants to circumvent the balance. Leah wants to be able to go against, and rise to more power.
I mean, it's unclear. It's unclear with Leah's nature specifically, but everybody and Cat Sith is not either. But the ladies at least were mortal once, and presumably would be able to make a choice, even if they have a mental.
Well, the ladies were changelings, but yes, they were. I mean, they already had their foot in the compulsion door.
And the way that it works with the changelings is it seems like that's their choice, right? Once they make the choice to be Fae or human,
right,
that seals it, So once they decide to be Fae, they don't still get to hold on to some of that choice because they were human once. They are now Fae, So
yeah, but even that, like even and as Jim brought up, is that what happens if we mortals, a human lives for a very long time? Mm-hmm. They are, in essence, still human.
Yeah, but not to any degree that really matters. Once, especially when you start getting to her level, it's a framing device that allows her to be more understandable to a reader, but not like to the point where she's just going to start having tea with Dresden and we're going to get heart-to-hearts all the time. It's
Maggie
just
Jr. Maybe they'll watch Frozen 2. So.
That already happened.
You're welcome.
And the sequels are never as good.
Yeah.
Or rarely.
Mab didn't like the first one, so what does she care about the second one?
Fucking Disney, man.
Yeah. Mab watches them with a different kind of perspective and the self-satisfied, satisfaction of just seeing like, yep, I'm going to continue on forever because this Walt Disney guy, I got a hold of him. There you go. Mab and Walt Disney. That's where Bob came from.
But she's mad at Disney for making.
Oh yeah, she hates Disney.
Yeah. Not as scary as they should have been.
Yeah, sure. But, food is food at that point, right? So.
Although I think there is another word. I can't remember if there's another word of Jim offhand. Something about Disney, like either she facilitated Disney or she thought it was maybe going to be a good idea but didn't get to co-opt it. I'll have to go dig for that one. Anyway.
Do you think it's number 13 that Nemesis is restricted to? The way
it seems like it would be a good enough guess, yeah.
Yeah, if I had to pull out any of the infinite numbers, I would start with that one. So.
Mm-hmm.
But there was still 4 infected people at the island on cold days.
So,
hey, I hope Jim doesn't see this and then just never want to come back. But I feel we just kind of caught him with his pants down there.
No.
I'm gonna guess he maybe didn't decide that Justine necessarily was infected at that moment.
Right. But the other thing is, so we're talking about the 4 on the island and what have you, but the fact that Cat Sith got taken during those events, right? So he's probably not running around with 13 infected people right now. It's just what the upper limit is, right? Yeah. Or, he let somebody go to take it,
Who was the 4th?
Sith, but...
So He Who Walks Before, Justine, Maeve, Cat Sith.
Okay. Well, but I don't really count the Walker as Nemesis. He's his own thing.
Well, so Justine says that she is Nemesis, and then is compelled to say that she is He Who Walks
beside.
Mm-hmm. Thank you.
Right.
Yeah, she's the 3rd Walker. Nemesis is the 3rd Walker.
Right. So there were 2 Walkers and 3 Nemesis.
Yes.
Which also going back to the Angels, they know enough to know that there are 3 Walkers because Mac knows that. And he's an ex-Angel.
And He Who Walks Before is still particularly mad at him.
Yeah, well. So, I mean, they obviously had encounters, dealings. I mean, it always made sense that the Angels would have essentially been their first foes. Because God said,
we're probably the first things created in reality.
Right.
Maybe.
And they're also the first crack at souls because they're nothing but.
Have you seen what angels really look like? Angels were also outsiders. So.
Yep, that's why they say be not afraid.
Right.
Too.
Which is my favorite way to enter a room now too. Actually, so
be not afraid.
When I'm sneaking up on people, be not afraid.
Be not afraid. Justin is here.
Yeah, that's not reassuring at all.
It really isn't, which is why it's great.
Right. That last things that we need to talk about, because otherwise I want to talk about the British guy in Demon Reach and that bullshit.
It's Chandler. Let's go. Just kidding. So.
I mean, I really want to know what happens with Chandler, and I'd love to him to come back damaged because that's fun. But if he was put into Demon Reach by the first warden, and Jim skated around the question of when.
Right.
Right. Well, I mean, let's face it. That's the thing with Merlin is you can play around with time. So he could have done it like 5 minutes ago, for all we know.
Well, but no.
Yes,
right?
but you know what I mean.
Yeah.
He could have done it at one of his earlier. I mean, we see him doing it in 5 different times and places on the same spot. We know he's got a wide range of time because he goes back to BC times to take stuff out of the Library of Alexandria as it's burned down, all the way up to the establishment of the Roman Catholic Church. So he's got this wide time frame, and I'm pretty sure he didn't just live that long necessarily. Right. We know the Gatekeeper plays around with the Never Never and all this stuff. So there seems like there's room for it could have been at a different point.
Well, and we obviously have enough evidence to suggest that he is much more capable at time travel than anybody else.
Well, he's much more capable at anything.
Rashid cheats by surfing the slower streams, right? He talks about that. We've seen Kringle cheat by taking the slower path, in Cold Days. But it's entirely possible that Merlin just flaunts that law of magic entirely, and he's pulled off, warding magic that Dresden couldn't even dream of.
Right, and it depends on how much of that is his own power versus whether or not he had a sponsor, so to speak. But He's pulling off things that are impossible, that even Bob thinks are impossible. So,
yeah.
Which goes back to, I think, the best next question for somebody about the nature of the Merlin is they need to ask if he's got an eye patch or not. You're welcome.
Thank you.
I don't know. As much as I don't want that to be the answer, I couldn't just shoot it down out of hand. I
would be more fine with Odin and Merlin being the same person than what she really wants, which is that he's Rashid.
Right.
Because
that's
stupid.
kind of the point too, right? So you've got Beowulf now, we know was Odin just running around as a mortal. Vadarung, why not the wizard who was supposedly taught by Odin? So,
well, because Mab does not treat Vadarung like she would apparently treat Merlin.
Because they're not the same person. She doesn't treat Vadarung like she treats Santa Claus either. Because, yes, they're the same person, but they're different mantles. And it's pretty much, I think, stated that we still don't know all the mantles that he has and masquerades as. So,
oh, yeah. He has dozens that are just written down in books we already have.
We also know that apparently history being full of little monsters, that they do this all the time, whether because they're bored or because they want to do, get involved. All of them do that.
Or because it's a convenient way to disappear, you've got some blood-sucking creature, they're getting on to me, I better move on, because, we're afraid of mortals, and with good reason. But, yeah.
One day we'll see a good reason. I am unimpressed with mortals in the Dresdenverse.
I mean, did you see, I'm assuming you saw the post talking about, here's why you should be afraid of mortals. Exhibit A is Murphy with a rocket launcher. I know how much you love that.
Yeah,
one, right?
You're not selling me on mortals based on what Murphy does.
So the giant that tangled with Thor and survived it gets one shot by a 4'11" nobody with a rocket launcher.
Sounds like she was just given a good moment to give one because she was going to die.
Okay. You're so satisfied with that answer, but that's one example. And that's the one that you hate the most. But how many immortals has Dresden fallen? How many? It just goes on and on, my dude. It's not you can't.
Well, he's a wizard.
Okay, he's immortal.
Right? No.
Yes,
no.
Yes. It matters every single fucking time. Yes, they're the vanguard against monsters, but they are always mortals.
I don't
And
care. If I start
that's
shooting
why-
lightning out of my face and I take over this place,
You
I've
just don't
exceeded
want it
it.
to be. That doesn't make it not right, okay? Because it's the reason why every time the monsters decide to try and tangle, he's like, "You want me to call the cops?" And then they start behaving, or they make themselves.
Because there's so
scarce.
many more mortals, and their technology
Right.
has gotten pretty good.
yes.
Right.
That's
So
it,
the
not wizards.
supernaturals can't win.
The reason that they always say they fear mortals is because they come in numbers, they come with weapons, they get really scared really easily. And yeah, I'm
And
sure
they
they
kill
have other
people.
supernatural people like wizards helping them, but they're never mentioning that. They're always like pesky humans.
Yeah, you're right. Beowulf didn't have anything to do with it that one time either. So you're talking about sponsors, then yes, it's they get propped up by air quotes mortals all the time too. But
Right. But then you'd be
Anyway.
afraid of the sponsor. You wouldn't just be afraid of the people. Like if I say, humanity, I'm really scared of them because of X, Y, and Z, but I don't mention the fact that, well, the guy who can shoot lightning bolts is with them, that you're propping up
yes,
the
all
angry
lightning
ants
bolts
as opposed
that
to
Beowulf-
the killer bee. There's a difference.
all the lightning bolts that Beowulf threw at Grendel.
Beowulf's a god. What are you even talking about?
We know that now, but like I don't think that's common knowledge either, though, because you want to talk about people getting scared and going after somebody. You don't think that a lot of the monsters in the dark wouldn't form a coalition to try and bump off Vadarung if they knew he was the one secretly running around propping everybody up. So we know that, but I don't think everybody else does. Like,
Well, yeah, but I think there's a difference between your typical mythological champion who is human that goes to slay the beast,
mhm.
and the whole point of we, the supernatural community, fear humanity because of the reasons they've given 3-4 times. As a group, panicky humans with their weapons, with their desire to kill all, and they don't like us. So it's not that they wouldn't necessarily have sponsors or there wouldn't be other avenues if people wanted to prop them up. It's that we fear humanity because they're this thing. So far, they haven't shown themselves to be that thing other than you've got Murphy shooting a giant in the face with a rocket launcher. Like humans have never, and we get the mention of like, okay, they went to invade the South Side, and apparently that didn't work out well because everyone had guns.
The Battle of the Beam.
Yeah.
You know.
But so that to me is like, every time we in the Battle of the Beam, we see Harry turning around, he's lost like 15 more people. They're just,
Yes.
so far, humanity has not proven itself to be all that impressive. My
Well, it
only
depends on how you're calculating it, man. As a war of attrition, immortals lose. Period. So if
Didn't the Fomor, like, there was still a pretty significant amount of Fomor army left, and it just got splatted by the military.
probably heavy losses,
When they showed up.
but like take Corbin is what 12 sorcerers or whatever. If you lose half of them and you lose 1,100 dudes that for our purposes, Joe Bob off the street, right? Corb lost. Period.
Mhm.
It's going to take him hundreds of years, if not more, to recover from that. Like,
Right.
That's an example. I don't understand.
Because if you subtract all the supernatural influence that was helping humanity's side from this fight, Battle of the Beam, Chicago is a wasteland. Humanity just as itself is not that impressive. Not really.
They would have lost Chicago. That's
Right.
a battle. That happens in every war. But it's not like the Fomor took over North America because they felled Chicago. It's a
No, but
sneak
they
attack
actually had a pretty solid plan. They just go run back into the ocean. They could pop up and do this all the time.
for a time.
I mean, there would be
But not
significant defenses established at every major city that's near the water, then, right? It's,
Well, theoretically. They came in through the lakes. I don't know how that works up there.
those lakes are sufficiently large, so like Chicago.
they're
has-
connected to the ocean somewhere, surely.
Well, yeah, I
through
don't
those big
remember
lakes,
where
right?
or how. And I've only
Right.
been to Chicago twice, and I didn't care about the water.
I'm just saying, like those lakes are larger than some European countries, so one. I'm sure they get
Excuse
ships
me?
in there somewhere. Did you not see that map? I'll find it. There was a post on Reddit this week that was like, here's the lakes overlaid over Europe. It's big. Those lakes are gigantic. So,
It's probably bigger than my country.
yeah.
Well, that's not saying much.
Anyway, any other last minute,
I miss Ben.
that good job,
Well, I guess somebody had to.
right?
I miss someone positive.
All of you are positive.
But not enough to make up for you, you
Well, that
grumpy goose.
get good, get better.
We didn't talk about the dragon. Do we want to talk about that?
You
Was
can
there
talk
anything-
about the dragon. I mean, the dragons in general.
right that section. So,
Tunguska or is Farovax Jormungandr, and he says you'll have to see.
right. Yeah. And the fact that the reason why they were staring each other down is because Odin could take him, which I think is important considering how much his power is diminished and how he got ganked by, Ethnium.
Yeah, that is another power level question, because I think years ago he said that if Mab went up against Farovax, it would be so difficult she would maybe make it out. But Vadaron can
they're
take him.
pretty even.
Can
Wow.
Farovax withstand a shot of the Eye of Baylor?
No. I mean, yes, but no.
Right.
Maybe,
If he's sitting there like a chump, no.
yeah, I was gonna say if he's sitting there as a chump, not in his true form, that can correct the earth. I don't know about that.
If
And
if one of the swords can kill a dragon, a Vadarong,
But the swords get to cheat.
Farovax level dragon.
And they had help because if Ebenezer was there, it wasn't just Michael with the sword. Which that's the other question,
But
right?
Tunguska
Because-
was too long ago.
Yeah, because the last time a dragon was killed, it was Michael, and that was one of the capital D dragons. But the last time
Yes.
that a dragon was killed was Tunguska. I don't know. It just,
Well, because he said
it's
in the
confusing.
mortal world, which is why I used to think and still think that something was kind of going. The reason Seriothorax was a little more vulnerable was maybe he was kind of in the Never Never, kind of more exposed, doing whatever his ritual was. But I don't know that.
right.
But the word of Jim was the last time a dragon died in the mortal world was Tunguska. So if that holds to being whatever it is, I mean, it's still. So either Ebenezer pulls down a comet to kill a dragon, or Comet is just the cover story for what happened there.
Right.
Both are good.
Yeah, both are fine.
Both. Why not both? We can have both.
Yeah. And Harry has to ask these exact questions when he goes and fights the dragon. That's great.
Right.
Well, and then it's just like, so you got to go back through all the other things he mentions. It's like Krakatoa. What the hell was he fighting there? New Madrid, which is close to his home, and around the time when his wife probably would have died. What was he fighting there? I mean, they don't all have to be that, because we know Casa Verde was just from afar, and
Hmm.
We
Sending
just
a tactical
need the adventures of Ebb and Listens to Wind, and then and then those things will be in there.
okay.
I would like that. I kind of hope that spin-off still happens. Even if we don't get the specific, this is when the Black Staff went crazy. If we can get the, what was it, the American Indian War? He was talking about writing that.
French
at some
and
point.
Indian. Yeah, French and Indian War, when he and Langtree were basically kids running around being insane. Washington was a Knight of the Cross, this, that, and the other thing.
Oh yeah. Craziness.
Forgot about that bit. But I don't know. I wish we had gotten to the black stuff questions, because like how did Mother Winter lose her black stuff? How did the children get
Yeah.
it?
Shit happens, man.
Yeah. And
So we got stuff for
we
next
drew
time.
Yeah, we
I
have
know.
questions.
3
for
years
next
from
week.
now.
We only made it through like 2/3 of our questions, let alone we had, like another 20 or 30 just in case.
I got to be honest, we got through more than I thought we would.
Right.
Yes, and we got more of him just talking and giving us information and tidbits that we weren't really asking for that were still great.
Well, right, yeah, especially considering, because I thought it would go one of two ways. We either breeze through a bunch because we'd get a bunch of, no, I'm not telling you that, or we'd get enough detail where we kind of like maybe got halfway. What we got instead was pretty much good detail and 2/3 of the way.
And you got your confirmation in Unseelie Incursion and Accords in 94. She must be so smug.
He's always smug.
I'm
Look at
smug
that.
whether I'm right or not. Being right is just better.
This was good. We got a lot of information and lots more questions, and it's good. And
Yay.
we'll probably go through more and more of this detail as we're going through all the 85 reread chapters of Battleground.
Oh, we're still doing that.
Not 85 chapters, but 85 episodes. So.
Yeah, that one. I mean, the last chapter alone is probably going to take us 2 or 3 episodes.
Yeah, dude. Like I keep warning, my friend and my wife, and they're like, "Oh, I'm on like the second to last chapter." I'm like, "Yeah, dude, it's an hour and a half. The last chapter itself is an hour and a half. So don't get excited yet. There's still so much."
Yeah.
So
we'll be back
What did
next
wifey
week.
Pooh say to say chapter 22?
so last night she had just gotten to the bit about Marcone, because she was like, "Oh, he just got the eye and ran off," and I'm like, "Hold on." So I looked through the last couple of pages and where the chapter ends, and I'm like, "Okay, you're good to read up to the last chapter, but it's 11. If you want to sleep tonight, do not read anymore, because there's still at least 2 or 3 big reveals before the end." So like, yeah, because she definitely doesn't need to be reading about the the binding. I'll say, just in case anybody's listening through the door, but and some of the shenanigans there. I'm like, you're not going to sleep if you deal with that. But
Sleep is for the weak.
But Murphy's death, how did she react to that one? I don't
she
think
she was upset about it, and I was like, yeah, well, at least now I can talk about it. It's been like a month and a half, and I haven't been able to talk about it. Then had to tell her about my brother's instance, because he was driving down like the last canyon on our way to Salt Lake City by himself with a U-Haul full of crap, and reading that in the dark by himself. And it's like, sorry, dude, it's not like I could warn you. So,
I'm insulted that we don't count as people you could talk to about your Murphy grief.
well, you know what I mean.
You can talk to me about it and Alex a bit, but not you.
Right.
Everyone should take the opposing viewpoint every once in a while.
I mean, I'm okay with that, but within reason, my dude. The rocket launcher thing is great. She felled a great giant champion. She's going to get resurrected.
She died. I'm fine. I'm living with it. But when she comes back and she gets to be a badass on her yard, I'm going to be upset again.
Like all good Terminators, she'll be back.
Yeah, she's so wonderful.
I mean, the great thing is she's immortal now, so she'll be back and back.
She's not immortal. She's just kind of like... She's a glorified puppet.
That's the technical term.
She just happens to have a really cool engine.
Yeah.
Wait.
Yeah, that's a cool engine. I don't know. Like plug things.
Go plug
Professional face. Come on.
Are we doing while we weren't recording next week?
I thought we were going back to Dresden for Battleground.
Okay. Battleground episode XDX next week.
And then back to while we're recording after that, right?
Actually, that might land us on the Christmas episode, honestly.
Normal schedule after that is what I was like. We're going.
Sometime next year, we'll get back on track. Click on the Drive-Thru RPG link. Sign up for our Patreon. Give us money so we can afford to read from a script and shit.
Yeah, and you can watch all of our meme conversations in Discord.
Yep.
Those are fun.
This episode was also sponsored by the headache EG's given me.
Listen, before I came on, apparently you were yelling at the food delivery guy, so I don't want to hear that I gave you a headache.
I don't know.
It was that questionable hamburger that you got from Not Wendy's.
Yeah, that you ate with a knife and a fork. You couldn't even bear to touch it with your skin. That was what gave you the headache.
It's messy. I don't want, and then I have to go wash my hands at the keyboard. No,
You should
So
wash
why are you
your hands
eating a
anyway
hamburger?
after you eat.